I am genuinely well and truly so lost. I feel like that confused dog meme when I was reading this. I was listening to the audiobook like, am I stupid or does this just like not make any sense? I'm so confused. I have a face mask on. Peyton says I look like SpongeBob. He's not wrong. He's not wrong. Hey, what's up? My name's Alea. Welcome back to my channel and welcome to another reading vlog. So I think this week we're going to do a little reset vlog. So I just got back from vacation and I really need to like do some chores, go to the store, do some cooking, and I also have a few books that I have been wanting to read lately that are like new fall releases and stuff like that. So I thought we could kind of like combine all that into one little vlog. And so the first book I want to read for this video is The September House, and this is a new horror novel that just came out in September, and I had some downtime at work today and so I started the ebook and it's really good so far. I think I'm like 75 pages in, and so far it's a really good time. So we're following this woman named Margaret, and she and her husband Hal buy this like gorgeous Victorian dream house, and they have been like renting for a really long time, and they have an older daughter who is like moved out of the house, and so they buy this house and they think it's going to be amazing, and they move in and everything seems great for a little while, and then all of a sudden spooky stuff starts happening, and there's like ghosts in this house, and the walls start bleeding every September, and so it's like haunted all the time, but in September it gets really bad, and there's something really creepy in the basement, and it's just like wild. And so now Margaret is living in this house and she decides that she's not going to be run out by these ghosts, and so she basically is like, you know what, this is not a great situation, but like this is my dream house and I'm going to make it work. And so she has kind of like figured out the ghosts and like what makes them tick and like how to kind of like keep them under wraps a little bit so that the house is like livable. But her husband Hal like cannot handle it, and so he leaves her and moves out of the house. And so now it's the beginning of September again, and the house is starting to get super creepy, and the thing in the basement is getting like powerful again, and the ghosts are all coming out, and there's like this one ghost lady who is a housekeeper, and she was like one of the previous housekeepers for the previous owners, and she died in the house, and so she like talks to Margaret. And there's this little boy named Elias who's also a ghost, and he has like fangs and tries to like bite people and stuff. And so it's actually kind of this like funny, spooky sort of story. Our main character Margaret is really funny, and she really just like takes everything with a grain of salt. Like, she doesn't give a shit. She's like, you know what, yeah, there's ghosts, but like, you know, what's a little blood on the walls, you know, that's fine, we'll make it work. You know, she's open to the fact that like this house is definitely haunted, but she's not like scared about it. And so she's like, no, like I'm gonna keep living in this house, and you know, whatever, I don't really care that my husband left, it's fine. But then Margaret's daughter Catherine calls and is like, hey, like where's dad? Like he's not answering his phone, like what the hell? And Margaret has to finally confess to her daughter that like their dad left, and you know, she doesn't know where he is and stuff. And so the daughter like freaks out and she's like, I'm coming down there. And Margaret's like, it's September, like maybe don't. And their daughter Catherine has never been to the house, and she has no idea that it's haunted and all this stuff. And so Catherine is like really pushy and kind of a bitch, to be honest, and she like insists that she's gonna come down and books a flight, and her mom like can't find a way to stop her. And so now Catherine has showed up at the house, and Margaret is like, how am I gonna keep this under wraps so my daughter doesn't freak out and like try to force her to move out of the house? And that's kind of where we're at right now. And Margaret, you know, has these different remedies that she's kind of using to keep the ghosts a little bit calmer while her daughter is there, but like, you know, at night you can hear like screaming, and Margaret like can't get any sleep, and there's blood running down the walls and like down the staircase, and she had this priest come in to try and like bless the house, and it didn't go so well. And Margaret has this neighbor named Eddie who lives next door, and she's really nice, and they're like friends. And so Eddie comes over, and Margaret's like, dude, my daughter's coming, and Eddie's like, oh no, this is bad. So anyways, it's really fun so far. Margaret is really snarky and funny, and I really like this haunted house. It's giving like American Horror Story season 1 vibes, but there's also this vibe that reminds me a little bit of My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix, just with like all the talk of like this priest coming in and like blessing the house and stuff, and it's really interesting. And I'm also really interested in the different ghosts that are in this house, because it's kind of like American Horror Story where there's all these ghosts of the previous tenants, and we're getting bits and pieces of like the stories about them and how they died and like who killed who and who's related to who and all that stuff. That's super interesting to me. But Margaret's also really kind of like keeping stuff close to the chest right now. Like she keeps alluding to something bad that happened in the basement with her husband last September, and all these other like kind of like family drama things between her and her husband and their daughter. And it sounds like maybe her husband is like not a very good dude and like didn't treat their daughter very well when she was growing up and that kind of thing. So I'm interested to get more into this. So far I'm flying through it. And then I also really wanted to get to a couple other books in this vlog. So I wanted to get to Mammoths at the Gate by Niveau. So this is her newest novella in her Singing Hills series. And this is one of my most anticipated books of the year. So I really want to get to this. And then I also want to try and listen to the audiobook for Rouge by Mona Awad. That might be kind of pushing it because it's kind of a longer audiobook. And I've never read Mona Awad before, but I want to give it a go and see what I think. So that's kind of the tentative TBR. And I will talk to you later. Hello, you are currently in my cupboard, but I wanted to chat with you while I cut up some veggies. So story time. Some of you might remember, if you've been around on the channel for a while, that I think I talked to you guys a while ago about some food allergy stuff that I was dealing with, and like trying to go to doctor's appointments and figure out what was like going on with my food allergies and hormones and all that kind of stuff. And I am not going to the doctor anymore, but I have kind of been like experimenting with some other stuff as well to help with like hormones and acne and stuff, but I've been really like struggling with it the last few months, and my acne has just been like breaking out like crazy. So I've been trying to figure out what else I can do, because I feel like I've tried like everything under the sun already. So I decided to kind of like do some more research into food, because at this point like I know what I can't eat, but I haven't really like added things back into my diet that I can eat. And so I was doing a little bit of research online into like different foods that are supposed to help like balance hormones and stuff. And so I found some stuff that I don't normally eat, and then I was going on YouTube and like finding some new recipes and stuff that include some of those foods. So yesterday Peyton and I went to the store and got a bunch of stuff that I have never really tried before. And so I'm currently trying to make a quinoa salad. Pray for me. I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm kind of just freeballing it, to be honest. I'm currently cutting up Kalamata olives, which I've never had before, and I just ate one, and I don't know how I feel about them. But they kind of look like little weird hippopotamuses to me. So that's kind of the level I'm on right now. I'm trying to make this little salad. Everything else is going good. I've made quinoa successfully for the first time in my life, so I'm feeling pretty proud about that. But I'm gonna try to finish the salad, and then I'll let you know if it's good or not. I think it's gonna be good. I'm not sure about the olives, but everything else feels good and promising thus far. But yesterday I was also doing some more reading of September House, and I think I'm like a little over 100 pages in now, and it's really, really good so far. So the daughter Catherine has now come to the house, and so Margaret is trying to like deal with Catherine and try and like keep her from seeing the ghosts and the blood running down the walls and all that stuff. But Catherine, as it turns out, has like a lot of issues. She's definitely got some like anger issues and stuff. And so Catherine went into the dad's study, and she figured out that there was some like locked drawers in there and stuff. And turns out the dad used to be an alcoholic, and they found some evidence that he has gotten into drinking again. And so they're thinking that that like has something to do with the reason why he left and all this different stuff. But we're also finding out more from Margaret about like what their relationship was like before he left, and the different marital issues they were having. And it sounds like he was like really not a good guy. Like he was really like isolating her in a lot of ways. Like basically when he was an alcoholic years ago, he really like isolated them and like wouldn't let her like bring friends to the house or anything like that, so they don't really have any friends. And then he had like a bunch of DUIs and shit, and he like went to jail for a little bit for it, and they basically told him like, hey, if you don't get clean, like you're going to prison for like a year. And so he like went to this AA group and like got clean, and now he's like relapsed and like run away from the family. But the daughter Catherine is like obsessed with finding it, and I don't really understand why. Like she clearly has some issues. She like just went through a bad breakup with her girlfriend, and she has also like started drinking and stuff, and I think she seems like she's really terrified that she's going to end up just like her dad. But I'm also like, this man is like a shitty alcoholic. Like, leave this man to his own devices. Like, if he wants to run away, that's his own problem, you know? So I don't really know why she's so determined to find him, because Margaret's kind of like, I could take him, I could leave him, you know? But it seems like part of why Margaret is so like accustomed to just finding ways to like survive in whatever situation she's in is because she's been in this, you know, really not great relationship in this marriage with this man who's an alcoholic, and, you know, wasn't that great to her. Like, he was when they were younger, but it sounds like in the last few years he's just been like, I don't know, like really isolating her and not treating her very well and relapsing and trying to get her to move out of this house that she likes and all this different stuff. So anyways, it's really interesting, and so far I'm super duper into it, and it's a really fast read too. I've been like binge reading it. It's been great, but that's kind of where I'm at. So I'm gonna finish the salad, and I will update you probably when it's done and I try it and I tell you if it's good or not. So I started and finished Mammoths at the Gate, and I basically just sat down and read this whole thing in one sitting because it's really, really short. This is the fourth book in Nevo's Singing Hills novella series, and I really, really like this series. But this one for me, I think was my least favorite in the series so far. I think I'm going to give it like a 3.5 stars. I thought it was really good, but it definitely has more of like a melancholy vibe than the other books in the series. And I really, really loved the last book, but the last book was really like high energy. There was a lot of fight scenes and action and stuff, and this one is more of a slow story. And this one is following our cleric Chi as they go back to their home at the Singing Hills Abbey, and basically they've been traveling to all these distant lands, like collecting stories and stuff, and so they're going back to the Abbey, and when they get there, there are these giant mammoths at the gate. And in this world, the mammoths are owned by like the royals, and they're like war mammoths. So basically, if the mammoths are at the gate, it's like a big threat. And so she kind of like sneaks in and gets into the Abbey, and there's hardly anybody there, and they run into one of their old friends who's another cleric, and their friend basically says, yeah, there was this big event and a lot of the other clerics have left to go to this site because they're doing research there. It's kind of like a once in a lifetime opportunity kind of thing, and there's very few people at the Abbey right now. And one of the other clerics who worked there, who was like one of the elders, just recently passed away, like since everybody else has been gone on this like research trip. And so this elderly cleric guy who passed away was related to the royalty. And basically there's this whole like death ritual that they do at the Abbey where people are buried there. And so if they are like part of their group, there's this big like funeral ceremony that happens, and then they're buried in this like crypt kind of thing. And the royalty have come to the gates with the mammoths because they're pissed because they want this man's body back because they want to bury him themselves. And the clerics are like, no, like that's not how we do things. He's one of ours. Like, we're going to bury him our way. And so there's kind of this standoff happening. And so the cleric Chi is trying to like navigate that and help sort out the situation. And Chi is also kind of struggling because their friend who's at the Abbey is somebody that they used to be really close with when they were kids. And now this person has kind of like changed and grown up. And there's a lot of talk in here about how like a lot of times you have to like change as time goes on in order to like adapt to your environment. Like you wouldn't be able to survive if you didn't change at least a little bit. And there's kind of this like element of grief because the cleric Chi is sort of like grieving the relationship that they had with their friend as a kid, and now they're adults and things are different, and they're also grieving the loss of this elder who died because it was like the elder who trained them as a kid. And so they're kind of going through this like grief process, and there's like this funeral ceremony that happens. Sorry if you can hear the sirens outside. But it's just kind of like a little bit more of a sad story, and there's not really a whole lot that happens. And it is like heartfelt and touching and stuff, but for me it didn't hit as well as the previous books in the series. So I liked it, and Nevo's writing is beautiful and stunning as always, but it just wasn't as gripping as her other novellas in the series, which I was a little bit disappointed about, but that's okay. It was still a good story, and overall the series is still really, really good, and I'm really excited to get to the next book because the next book is about foxes, and I think it's about this group of like magical fox shifters, and I think there's like a fox queen, and she has these kind of like handmaidens and stuff, and I'm pretty sure that was mentioned in one of the other novellas. I can't remember, I think it's number 2, when the tigers came down the mountain. I think there's a scene in there that talks about the foxes, and it was really cool. And I really liked the sound of the synopsis for book 5, so I'm really, really excited about this one. It comes out in 2024. These sirens are getting really loud, sorry. But this is definitely one of my like most anticipated releases for 2024, even though this one like was just kind of like a 3.5 for me. But overall, I'm glad that I read it, and it was one of my most anticipated ones of this year, so I'm really glad that I took it off of my TBR. And so that's kind of where I'm at. And I think Peyton and I are going to make some dinner, and I will talk to you later. Hello. So, reading update. I started the audiobook for Rouge today at work, and I wish that I could tell you that I'm understanding what the hell's going on in this book, but I can't say that. I'm not really sure if it's the book or if it's me, because honestly, I have been in just like a total brain fog this whole week. I feel like I just have hormones raging in my noggin, and I have not had a clear thought like all week long. But also this book is kind of the same vibe, like very fever dream energy. And it's a weird vibe. So the main character is at her mother's house, and her mother's just passed away. And so she's grieving, and she's kind of unpacking this weird relationship that they had, because they had a very weird toxic relationship from the time that our main character was a child. And her mom has always been like really obsessed with skincare and being like pale and thin and all this stuff. And our main character, Belle, is also super obsessed with skincare stuff, like to the point where it's like really obsessive and weird. And she's kind of like going to her mom's funeral, and her mom has a business partner who's really sketchy and weird, and Belle's kind of trying to figure out what was going on with her mom before her death, because her mom fell off of a cliff and her body was like smashed on some rocks, and some random guy found her body on the beach. And so they said that there's no foul play involved with her death, but Belle is kind of like, my mom sounded really weird on the phone, like the last couple times I talked to her, and like she seemed like she wasn't well, and she kept saying really weird cryptic stuff. Like she told Belle that she was going the way of the roses, and she like couldn't remember who Belle was, and it wasn't like a dementia thing, it was almost like she was going kind of crazy sort of vibe. So Belle is trying to unpack the mystery of what was going on with her mom, and she's realized that her mom was in a lot of debt. Like she took out a ton of loans, and she bought like this fancy Jaguar car, and she also sold her half of her business, because she owned this dress shop, to her sketchy business partner, and she didn't tell Belle that she sold the shop. And Belle is like, what the hell? Like she would never sell it and not tell me. And so she's kind of unpacking the layers of what was going on with her mom's life, and starting to like go through her belongings in her house and stuff, because she wants to sell the house. And she discovers that there's this weird group that her mom was a part of. And at first Belle thinks that it's some sort of like beauty spa thing, but this place has a real like creepy culty vibe. And so Belle ends up going there totally by accident, and she meets these weird people who are there, and they all have like really flawless skin and stuff. And when she goes to this mansion where this weird like cult spa is, they have this big fish tank that's full of these red jellyfish. And I think the jellyfish must have something to do with like the skincare stuff. And her mom had all of these weird like empty red jars in her house that just said rouge on them. And I'm assuming that like the red jellyfish have something to do with this like magical rouge product that her mom was using. And maybe that's what was like driving her mom crazy and stuff, and like led to her death. I don't know, I'm just speculating, but that's kind of what I've gathered so far. But the story is told in a really weird way. Like some of it feels stream of conscious, some of it is told in second person when Belle's a child, some of it is just like things that are happening to Belle, and she's kind of like disassociated in a lot of scenes because she's grieving and she's trying to unpack what's going on with her mom, and she's realizing that maybe she didn't know her mom as well as she thought she did, and she doesn't really know what her mother was involved with, but she also has all of this childhood trauma from these things that her mother ingrained in her about how important like beauty is and self-care and all of these things, and just kind of the way that her mother sort of like shamed her in a way, because Belle never met her dad, and her dad was like from a different area, and he had kind of like darker skin, and her mom is like super pale redhead. And so her mom was always like, oh Belle, like I envy your like dark skin and like your dark hair and whatever, but really it's like Belle's like, no you don't, like you kind of think less of me because I'm not as white as you. And so there's kind of like issues of racism and like fat phobia and this idea of like aesthetic perfection and all this stuff. So it's interesting. The audiobook feels like a fever dream to me, and I don't know if I'm fully understanding everything, because sometimes there's scenes where it's like you can't really tell if Belle is fully conscious or not. Like, she has moments where she kind of like has gaps in her memory almost, and then she wakes up and she's in some magical dress and shoes, and she's walking into this mansion where the secret spa is, and it's like she didn't remember putting on that dress or those shoes, and all of a sudden the shoes just like appeared in the house, and it's kind of strange. But I think that's kind of just how Mona Awad writes. I'm assuming this is the first book that I've read from her, but I've heard that her other books are also really trippy too, so I don't know. I think it's a cool vibe, but it is kind of like fever dream disorienting to listen to, but I do think that the narration is good, so that's kind of where I'm at with it. I've heard a lot of people say that they don't like this book, or that this is the worst Mona Awad that they've read, so I don't know. I don't have any comparisons there, but so far it's probably sitting at like, I don't know, like a 3.5 for me with where I'm at right now. But I think that's all I'm going to read for tonight, and I'm going to go to bed. And tomorrow I have a live show, and then I'm probably also going to do some more reading. I might also start another book in this vlog. We'll see. But that is kind of where I'm at with that. And I will see you tomorrow. Hello, sorry for coming at you looking like this. I have a face mask on. Peyton says I look like SpongeBob. He's not wrong. He's not wrong. We also have some tea. We love to see it. Because, part of a reset vlog is just a little bit of self-care. You know what I'm saying? I even got one of those little headband thingies like all the cute girlies have. We're feeling ourselves. It's great. We love to see it. So I think I'm going to talk to you about what I've been reading today while I take off my nail polish, because I have clear coat on, but it looks like shit, so we're gonna fix it. But I want to let you know that today I started the audiobook for Checkmate by Ali Hazelwood, because it just came out in November, and it wasn't really originally on my TBR, but I thought it might be fun to pick it up and give it a go, because I read one of her novellas in her like STEM collection, and I listened to that one on audiobook a couple years ago, and I really liked it, so I thought I would give this one a go. It's about this girl, Mallory, and she is not doing so hot. She has a mom who's very ill and is like chronically ill, and she also has two younger sisters who are both like kind of middle school age. And so Mallory is 18, and she's trying to take care of her sisters because her mother can like barely get out of bed some days. And it seems like Mallory learned how to play chess when she was a kid, and she was like crazy good at chess. She's really good at math and strategy and stuff like that. And so her dad was trying to train her to become like a pro chess player, and she was super into it. And then she hasn't really gone into exactly what happened, but something happened with her parents, and her dad seems like he's no longer in the picture, and I'm not sure if he like left them or if her parents just got like a divorce or what the deal is, but she's really like sensitive about it, and she has completely given up playing chess at the beginning of the novel because it was something that like she did with her dad, and it reminds her of him, and she just wants nothing to do with it, even though she was really good. And so one day her friend, who's like her best friend, is talking to her about how she's leaving for college, and our main character Mallory is really smart, and her mom was like, you really should like go to college, and she got scholarships and stuff, but she was like, I don't want to leave my family, like I need to take care of my younger sisters, my mom's not well, like I'm not gonna just up and leave them behind, And so her best friend is getting ready to go to college, and she basically says like, hey, do you want to come and participate in this chess tournament with me? We have like two other people who are on our team, but we need a fourth player, and I know that you're really good, and I know you haven't done it in a while, but like we could really use your help with this. And Mallory's like, absolutely not, like I don't play chess anymore, don't ask me. And then her friend is like, well, I'm leaving for college like next week, so really it would be like our last hurrah kind of thing. And Mallory's like, oh man, like you're totally right, like I've been working a lot and stuff to try and help my mom with the bills, like I totally lost track of time, didn't realize that you were leaving for college so soon. And so Mallory decides to go to this chess tournament, and then long story short, she goes to the tournament, and she realizes that there's a lot of like pro chess players that are at this tournament, because there's all these different kind of like chess clubs in New York where she's living, and a lot of the people who are involved in that are connected to the people who are putting on this chess tournament and so on and so forth. And so she goes and she ends up getting paired up with this guy, Nolan Sawyer, who is supposedly like the reigning champ in chess. And so she ends up having to play him right off the bat. And her friend basically was like, come to this chess tournament with me, like, you don't even have to try. Like, you can lose on purpose and we'll, like, go get cookies. Like, don't even worry about it. But I just need somebody to come with me. And so she's, like, not even really trying at first. And she knows who he is because she's seen videos of him and stuff, and she's really intimidated and nervous. And so she kind of, like, botches her introduction to him, and she's kind of just, like, piss-farting around. And then she's, like, realizing, all of a sudden, she's like, oh, shit. And she kind of, like, flips that switch in her brain, and she actually starts paying attention to what she's been doing while she's playing chess. And she has been doing this like aggressive starter move on the chessboard, and she's like, oh shit, she's like, I'm like subconsciously actually trying by accident. And so she kind of realizes like, okay, like, I'm just gonna lean into this and like go for it. And she ends up like actually going for it hardcore, and she beats this guy in chess. And it's a huge thing, and people are standing around and they're like, oh my god, she just beat the reigning champ, like, who is this girl? And then she kind of freaks out and she's like, oh my god, like, I don't want the attention, I didn't come here to do that, like, this guy is serious, and he has a reputation for getting really angry when he loses. And so he's been playing chess since he was like a kid, like she did, and he used to like flip the table and like throw the pieces on the floor and stuff if people beat him. And so she's like, I'm nervous. And he doesn't get aggressive with her though. He kind of looks at her like, who are you? Like, this random woman just comes out of the blue and like kicks his ass in front of God and everyone. Anyways, and so she like leaves. She gets on the train and she like runs away. And the book kind of goes from there. And so that's her first meeting that she has with this guy Nolan. And so I think she's gonna end up probably getting back into like the chess world and getting to meet him more, and I think they're supposed to have kind of like a budding romance thing going on. But it's interesting because at the beginning of the book, in like the prologue, she's 16 and he's 18, and she's like watching YouTube videos of him winning these chess tournaments on YouTube, like in class when she's in high school. And then it flips to 2 years later at this contest where she beats him. So she's 18 and he's 20. So they're younger than I thought they would be. I think the last Ellie Hazelwood I read, people were more in like their mid-20s, but I don't know. So it's not YA, but it's kind of that borderline of like new adult range, I guess. So it's interesting. I like the main character, Mallory, so far. She's definitely like a responsible person and trying to take care of her family and stuff, but she's kind of between a rock and a hard place with her sisters and her mom being ill and everything. So I'm interested to see what happens, because she's kind of just like the girl next door, and this guy that she's gonna have a romance with is like the man. Like, there was this talk show host that was calling him like the Gen Z sex idol or something of chess, and she was like, what? And so as she's playing him, she's like, oh my god, this guy is supposedly like the chess sex god or whatever, which is absurd because they were children, essentially, and they're not that old even now, but it's just absurd that some like Jimmy Fallon-esque dude would be like, this guy is a sex god of chess. Like, what does that mean? It's chess. So I don't know, I'm interested to see what happens, but I'm also like not a chess girly at all, so all the chess talk is like above my head, but it's still fun. It's not like too much. I was kind of worried that it was going to be too in the weeds of the game for me to care, but no, I think it's good. I like Alea Hazelwood's writing. It's really fun. It's easy to get through. So I'm already like 16% of the way through the audiobook, and I just started it like on a whim at work today. So I'm going to listen to more of that and finish my tea, and then I'll update you when I've read something else. Hello, So I have some reading updates for you. So I finished 2 books since I talked to you last. So the first thing I finished is Check and Mate by Alea Hazelwood, and I think I'm going to give this one 4 stars. I really enjoyed it. Honestly, I've been like kicking my little feet over it, and I binge read the audiobook in 2 days, and it's kind of on the longer side, so that was a pretty big deal for me, and I absolutely loved it. It was so good. I really enjoyed the banter between the 2 main characters, and I thought that their romance was so cute, and even though they were on the younger side, it still felt like believable and fun for me, and I absolutely loved it. Like when I finished it, the first thing I wanted to do was reread it because I just wanted more of Mallory and Nolan. They're so cute together, and it was kind of rough because there was a really big like 3rd act breakup, and I didn't super love that, but the ending was so sweet and all the characters really came together, and Mallory finally like talked to her mom about the whole situation with her father and worked things out with her sisters, and it was really cute. And I was listening to the audiobook while I was making waffles, and I was like tearing up while I was cooking because it was so cute and emotional seeing Mallory talk to her mom and her sisters about all the stuff that they'd been dealing with that they had kind of just like not talked about. And part of the big 3rd act breakup was that Mallory had been like holding on to a lot of stuff that wasn't about Nolan. It was more about her and her dad and what happened between her and her mom and everything like that, and she just hadn't ever let herself like work through that or get emotional about it. And when she finally like opened the floodgates and talked to her mom about it, it was really sweet, and I really liked that. And I liked the way that things kind of played out with Mallory and Nolan in the way that they kind of got to train together, and they have one point in the book where they're basically living together in a house with some other chess players because they're training for the like world championship for chess, and Mallory is helping him train. And it is so cute the way they have this forced proximity thing going on when they're living in the same environment, and they're both super into chess and like really passionate and dedicated about it. And it was just cool to see them like in their element, but also have these moments where they're like flirting with each other, or they're like on the plane going to a competition or whatever. It was really fun, and I really enjoyed it a lot more than I thought, honestly. So I'm gonna give this a 4. I really loved it. It was definitely the best book that I read for this vlog. And then I also finished Rouge by mell-ø, and I don't know what to think about this book. I think I'm gonna give it 2 stars. I almost DNF'd it like 3 different times while I was listening to the audiobook, and the only reason I didn't was because I wanted to know what the hell was happening with the jellyfish. It was the only thing keeping me going. So basically, I liked the beginning of the book, and I really liked the like fairy tale elements of this. Like a lot of people talk about how it's a dark fairy tale, and it is that. There's a lot of like magic mirrors and these like magical shoes that she has, and all this imagery of like the roses that gives like Beauty and the Beast vibes, and I really thought that was amazing and really well done. And I like the critiques that mell-ø was doing when she was talking about like the beauty industry and how people have this like aesthetic that they make for themselves and all these different things. It was really cool. But the middle part of this book, like the middle like 150 pages or so, oh my god, it dragged so bad. I felt like I was on like an incline machine going through molasses. It was that slow. It was brutal. I was listening to the audiobook at work, and I was just thinking to myself, like, should I DNF this book? And then I was like, no, like I want to know how it ends, and I want to see where it's going, because it seems like people either love this book or they hate this book. And I felt like if I didn't read the end, then I didn't really know what camp I was going to land in. But I just hated the middle section. I really did. It felt like the plot was so repetitive and cyclical for me. Like as soon as our main character Belle started getting the like treatments like her mom used to do at this like spa place, she started having a hard time like remembering things. And you kind of see her like slowly decline into madness in a way. And it was just really repetitive because she would like go to the spa, get a treatment, and then go home and talk to some guy or do some weird shit and like break into her mom's old dress shop and make a scene, and then she'd go and get another treatment, and then she'd go back to the dress shop, and it was just too much. Like, I feel like this would have been a way better story if it would have been a novella, because I loved the beginning and I loved the end. Like, when shit got weird in the last like 100 pages or so, it was amazing. I really liked the way that things turned out with the spa and the whole thing with the jellyfish and all this creepy weird shit that was going on. It was really cool. If anything, I could have used a little bit more explanation as to like what exactly the motivation was for these people who like created the spa and stuff. But it was really cool. There was kind of some like nasty scenes at the end that I really liked. And there was also a scene at the end with Belle that relates to her mother at the very, very end, and that was really touching and kind of made you rethink what exactly the relationship was between her and her mom and whether or not it was toxic completely. And I still don't really have a full opinion on that. I think it's kind of like a nuanced situation because her mom obviously like loves her, but her mom also acknowledges that she's kind of a toxic person, and so that definitely rubs off on her daughter. And there's also some like cultural appropriation going on because her mom kind of like takes on this Egyptian aesthetic whenever it fits her, because I found out as I was reading more of the book that Belle did meet her dad, but he died when she was really, really young, and so she really doesn't have any memory of him at all, and he was Egyptian, and so that's where her like darker skin comes from that her mom's always talking about. And her mom will like put on this song that's like Walk Like an Egyptian, and she'll put on like Egyptian jewelry or like outfits or whatever when she invites some of her boyfriends over just to make herself look exotic, which is pretty disgusting, and it makes Belle really uncomfortable. And so there's elements like that where her mom is not good, and then there's other times where you can tell her mom actually does care. And so it's really a nuanced relationship, but it is interesting to read about. But the end was great. The beginning was really cool, especially the prologue was very interesting. But that middle section just absolutely killed me. And I think if that was cut out and we just had basically the middle and the end put together into a novella, it would have been a lot more successful. For me, at least, because I felt like the pacing was really off and it just did not work for me very well at all. But I think I can see what she was trying to do, but I think the execution was not as good as it could have been, if that makes sense. So that's kind of my thoughts on Rouge. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I wanted to talk about that. There's also another part where Belle talks about how she has this weird scar on her forehead, and it's pretty frequently mentioned throughout the novel. And at first, I was kind of thinking that maybe like her mom did something to her, and that's why she had the scar, because whenever she asked her mom about it, her mom would just be like, oh, like it happened when you were a kid and you fell. And Belle was like, I don't remember falling. And her mom's like, you were a kid, kids fall. And turns out that's not really what happened. And it didn't really have anything to do with her mom. And I was very confused about the whole scar thing. And there's also a lot of mentions of Tom Cruise in here. And he's kind of like a character in here in a way. And that whole thing was really weird, and I don't know what the fuck was going on with that. There's so many elements to this book where I feel like I don't know what the hell was going on. And there's even parts in the middle section where she was interacting with different men. And at some points I was like, did they sleep together? Did they kiss? Like, I don't know what's happening. Like, she was in such a weird, like, forgetful fever dream state that there were parts of the plot where I was like, I am genuinely well and truly so lost. I feel like that confused dog meme when I was reading this. I was listening to the audiobook like, am I stupid or does this just like not make any sense? I'm so confused. But the parts that were good were really good. The parts that were weird and confusing and I didn't like were really frustrating. So that's my 2 cents on that. So I'm also still currently reading The September House. and I'm still really liking that. I think it's really good. I just haven't finished it yet. And then, like I mentioned earlier, I finished the Mammoths at the Gate by Nevo. So if I had to rank them in terms of like which ones I like the best, I think Check and Mate would be number 1. And then The September House would probably be number 2 because I really like the writing style of that one. And then I would probably put Mammoths at the Gate at number 3, and then Rouge is in last place. So that's my thought on that. Thank you so much for watching this vlog. If you made it to the end, leave me a red rose emoji in the comments for Rouge, and make sure you like and subscribe if you want to see some more bookish videos from me, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye!